Okay.
All right, let me double check that it's on. I'm curious if the Wi-Fi is going to be reliable for me. You can hear me okay though, right? Like you can see
Yeah.
me and hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty
Okay.
good.
All right, perfect. So it says we're streaming live. I was going to check on our page and it looks like we're there. Perfect.
All right.
So, hey everybody, it's Annalisa Burgos, and it's another episode of FYLPRO Fridays, our weekly series where we highlight some of our amazing alumni and the work that they're doing post their program. And today we have the amazing Kevin Zagala. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, thanks for having me, Annalisa. Yeah, excited to be here. Yeah, ready to just kind of talk about some stuff, and let's do this.
You know what, honestly, like, I don't know if I'm the only one to that I can't hear you, but I can't hear you. So I
You
wonder
can't hear me?
if
Oh, okay.
you
Let
can
me
hear
see.
yourself, yeah?
I
Okay,
cannot.
let me make sure it's just not me. Talk again.
Mic check.
Yeah?
Mic check. Mic check.
Okay, maybe it's just me. I just want to make sure that people can hear you. Oh, I know what it is. Speak again.
Mic check.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. All right, we're good to go.
Oh my God, sorry guys.
No. Oh,
But
yeah.
I think it's just me because I put my volume down. So in case you guys didn't notice, I'm like in an airport. And so there's going to be random sounds and announcements, but I wanted to, keep this about Kevin's journey. So definitely if you hear that, I'm going to try to mute it, but we want to keep the focus on you, Kevin. And so tell us a little bit about your FYLPRO experience and, what you're doing now. Fill us in.
Okay, yeah, so the FYLPRO experience was amazing. I was able to travel to the Philippines. Everything was paid for essentially. Shout out to the Ayala Foundation. Y'all take care of the folks, and that's some good stuff. Yeah, it was great. Like I remember first day, we did an immersion trip and we got to like bike around I think I forgot the name of the part of the city, but it's in Manila. But I think it's like Intramuros. Yeah, that was pretty cool. And like we did a few things. Like we met with some business leaders in Makati, and then we did also one thing that I thought was really cool that really was meaningful to me was having the experience of we went to a project that the Ayala Foundation was doing in like coordination with Manila Water, where they were essentially establishing like what is it, like some like utilities, like water related stuff to some like ETA people, like some folks out there. And I remember like one of the things that was like really like struck with me in that experience is that I remember I talked to some kid out there. I think his name was like Miguel or something. And, I asked him, I was like, hey, so, what's your life like and stuff? And he was telling me the story about how before they had the water pump, he used to spend like 2 to 3 hours every day, like getting water and like, picking up water, washing clothes and like doing all this like stuff. Right. And then he told me, and I was like, so now that you guys have the water pump, like, he was able to go to school and stuff, like, you know what I mean? Like I was just like when I saw the power of good works like that, I was just like, wow, like, now this kid, he's gonna have the opportunity to go to school and like fulfill the potential that he has, you know what I mean? So that was one of the really meaningful experiences for me. Aside from that, like I was able to meet like a bunch of like really cool people who I keep in touch with still. Sergio, Lizelle, Josh.
This is your batch. This is your
Yeah,
batch.
it's my batch. This is my batch, and like a couple of the board members that were there also. And also like shout out to like JR and shout out to like Shar also. They were like the ones that like really kind of like got me like onto the program. So yeah,
and a big part of it was the relationships you made.
Yes.
And it actually led you to your business. Tell us about that transition.
Yeah. So the legacy project that that I when I submitted my legacy project was for a carpooling app that's based out of the Bay Area right now. And yeah, like when I remember when I first submitted, when I first released the app, and I applied, you know, this was just like a fun little project that I worked on the side. It was like a, it was like an experience that I had. Like, so I don't know if you know, I think we talked about this yesterday, but like, casual
But explain it
carpooling.
to our people. Explain it
Okay,
to the
yeah, yeah,
people that may not know what it
definitely.
is.
Okay, for sure. So yeah, so in the Bay Area and other metropolitan areas around the United States, there's this system called like casual carpooling or slugging, which essentially is like basically people would line up at like bus stops or like parking spots, and essentially they would form a casual carpool, and they would take advantage of the high occupancy lane that's available to specific users during rush hour. So yeah, so like I remember, before I applied for FYLPRO, I had actually released this project. I put it out there in the App Store, and it got really good traction. Like at the time, like it was like doing super well. But then at the same time, like my son was just born, so I kind of mentioned this to Annalisa about how like I got two babies to work on, right? So which one do I want to focus on? So of course, I spent time taking care of my son and all, and the project has been like in maintenance mode. It's like I'm just kind of like releasing updates here and there, but like like in the 6 years that it's been out, like I'm still getting users like signing up, like random users like coming up and like signing up, and like people like asking me about the project. They're like, hey, what's going on with this project? Are you going to increase it more? So yeah, so that's a legacy project that I worked on, and that's what I submitted for. So anyone that's watching, if you want to apply for FYLPRO, please remember that you have to think about a legacy project that you want to help implement and stuff. But like yeah, so like that was the legacy project that I submitted for. The app is out
Mhm.
there still, and it's doing, it's still getting traction and still getting users and stuff.
Well, I wanted
So
you have a demo, right? So I wanted you
yeah, yeah,
to
for
maybe
sure, for
show
sure.
us.
Okay.
So for those of you, while you're setting that up, yeah, go ahead and share your screen and everything.
All right.
But yeah, Kevin was telling me that, he's been working on it for, several years, but only recently got to revisit it. Obviously because your son is older now and you have more
Mhm.
time, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
so this is what you can actually download off of iOS, right? It's only on iPhones right now.
yeah.
Uh,
We do have an Android client, but sorry to all the Android users. Like I just haven't been able to release the update. And it's currently crashing, but
Well,
but
that's why you need help from the universe,
exactly,
right? It's like you need
exactly.
a developer to help you. So if you
Yeah.
any developers out there that may be interested in working with Kevin on this project, you can
Hmm.
hit him up. Yeah,
Yes, yes, yes.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
so
how does it
okay,
work?
so yeah, so we'll go ahead and do a live. Can you see my screen and all? Like you can see
Yeah,
and everything? Yeah,
yeah.
okay. So this is the app. You can download it in the App Store. I'll just go ahead and like kind of do the full demo.
Mm-hmm.
So you can register. So we'll just do FYLPRO and then register and then test. So okay, whew,
I like how
I
it says
thought that,
loading. It's like
yeah, I was like,
loading.
I was like,
Is that your
I
like
was
slang?
my developer actually set this up, so I can't really tell.
Oh,
But
that's hilarious.
like,
Okay, I
dude,
thought
like
it was like loaded.
I swear, like I thought there was gonna be like I had like I don't know. Okay, so people that do this like demo anxiety, where it's like, oh no, is it gonna work actually when I'm demoing it? So
When
that's
it's
what I. That's
live,
why.
you're
Yeah,
under the
exactly,
pressure now.
exactly. So, all
Okay,
right.
let's see.
So the
So
basic
now what
use
are we
case.
looking at?
Okay, so this is like the setup of the routes that the users would take for casual carpool. So essentially, in the casual carpooling system in the Bay Area, there's all these different cities that have those meeting
Okay,
points that I was talking about, right? So
yeah.
the
So
basic,
this
the
app is
most,
only available in the Bay Area right now, just so
yeah,
people know, right? Right now, it's
yeah.
just Bay Area.
Mhm.
Okay,
But
go ahead.
okay, yeah, but to go like to not to like like what I want to say is that like there's major room for growth with this particular project, because slugging in some form exists not only in the Bay Area but also in like Houston and also the Washington Metro DC area. So it's there's definitely room for growth. But yeah, we'll set the starting point, and then we're gonna set the ending point. So the default use case is like normally people go from like the East Bay, like Oakland, to San Francisco in the morning, right? And then they can set up things like, okay, I want to see the drivers, I want to see the riders, show me the matches that are active, et cetera, et cetera. And keep in mind this is like super basic, right? This is like actually like I want to describe it as like phase 0 of the project. So we hit the save button, and then boom, like, okay, cool. So these are all the users that I've had on the app previously. So the way the system works right now in the current analog format is that people essentially go to all these like green spots, which is like, so like you see Oakland. So all of these spots are essentially areas where people would like literally like line up and like form a casual carpool. So there would be like, the system would be like one driver, two riders, they form a casual carpool, and they go into San Francisco. The benefits for the system for the drivers are that, they save time, they save money, they save gas, and they also have the flexibility to take their own car into the city. Because, if they were to drive by themselves during rush hour, it would be like an hour and a half, hour 20. But using casual carpool, it would be like 30 to 45 minutes. And on top of that, they pay less toll. So that's the drivers' benefits. So on the riders, same thing pretty much. The riders, they'll be able to ride in they'll be able to ride in a safe car. They'll be able to they pay less toll, and they save time. So yeah, so that's kind of like the system as it is right now. The app is pretty basic. As I previously mentioned, like it's phase
So do
0.
you click on a green? Like, how does it work? Like if I wanted to, so this is live. This is what's available now.
Yeah, this is what's live and
Yeah.
available now. So
Okay.
the reason, okay, so like, how I kind of mentioned like phase 0 of the project.
Mhm.
So phase 0 of the project, the the experiment that we were trying to prove, that I was trying to prove, was that, hey, there's this particular system, which is casual carpooling, that exists. There's a very niche market, which is like, taking this system. If I build a better mousetrap, will people want to use it? So I feel that, given the traction and given all the users and signups and everything, phase 0 has been a success, right? So the way it works is like, phase 0, in the phase 0 UX. So what I did was like, basically I wanted to allow people to like discover the system, and discover the system, and then in turn expand the pool of casual carpoolers. Because to give you a little bit of context, like, so in the research that I've done, like business research and all, like I can even show you stats if you want to check it out later. So like in the Bay Area, there's almost like 1.3 million commuters a day. Out of that 1.3 million, there's like 200,000 that have reported using carpool specifically, whether it's like a formal carpool or a casual carpool. And then out of that 200,000 that have reported using carpooling of some type, out of that 200,000, only 6,000 people have like said specifically that I take casual carpooling regularly. So, so when I heard those stats, I was kind of like, let's like expand the system, because like casual carpooling, like I remember when I first started, actually, oh, I told you this also, the story about how the first time I heard about it, like, and this is what really showed me the power of casual carpooling. So my dad, he was taking casual carpooling for so long, and it's like, and again, like I mentioned, it's been out there for like 30 years, right? He told me this story about how one time he was in San Francisco, and then he was picking up people, and then he was going to take them to Vallejo. So I'll give you an example. Oops. Oh, that's my kids. Shout out to my daughter and son. Oh, can you still hear me? Sorry. Yeah, you can still hear me? Oh, okay.
Sorry, I hear you. I
Oh,
just put myself on mute because of the announcements at the airport. But
okay.
yes, I was gonna
Okay.
say yes. That's pretty cool.
Okay. So yeah, so to give you an example, like he would go from San Francisco to Oakland, right? So using the app, I mean, he wouldn't use the app, but essentially what he would do is he would go to these spots in San Francisco, and he would pick up people, and then he would go to Oakland and he would drop them off at Oakland. Usually there would be like a central point. But anyways, like the point that I'm trying to make is that when he told me this story about how this one time he picked up two people. It was a lady and a gentleman. And you know, my dad is like a pretty sociable dude and stuff, and he's been taking the system for so long, so he was comfortable. So he started driving, da 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 da. And at the time, I was in the Air Force and I was stationed in Oklahoma. And then so he kind of mentioned this to the people in the car. Sorry, I when we talked about this yesterday, I got kind of emotional, and I'm probably gonna get emotional now. But so anyways, he mentioned that he that I was in the Air Force at the time, and it turns out that these two people, they were also from Oklahoma, but they were completely random strangers, right? And so you know, ends up that they start talking, and they're like, you know, they. So my dad is like, oh, cool, you know, they're getting along, whatever. So he's just driving, whatever. So eventually he gets to the drop off point, and then he drops them off, and you know, as he's looking, you know, he's driving away. As he's looking in the mirror, he sees them like exchanging phone numbers, you know. And then I thought, you know, that to me, it really showed the power of casual carpool. You know, like the way it can connect people. Um, you know, it's like a, you know, it's like a mutually beneficial, you know, experience for everybody. You know what I mean? So you know, it's like I think that's one thing that is kind of inherent to the Filipino culture is like our idea of sharing. You know, and like you know, of course, you know, they always say that Filipinos are some of the most hospitable people in the world, and you know that's true. So yeah, so I'm sorry, I'm sorry, Annalisa. I know I'm trying to like you know, I know this is
Don't
live
be
too.
sorry. Don't apologize for
Yeah,
your you know, your journey and your emotions. So, you know, for people that are watching, you know, you obviously can see how important this project is to Kevin. You know, and it really roots in, you know, this experience that your dad had. And I find that so amazing, and that a lot of the work that inspires us,
yeah,
not just you, but like all of the projects that we do, it's really tied to what our parents sacrificed or what they've
exactly.
been through. And so, yeah, don't apologize for being emotional. I mean, I think a lot of us, you know, I didn't personally do FYLPRO, but everyone that I talked to say that that was like such a big revelation for them, you know, especially being back in the homeland. Uh,
Yeah,
so,
yeah, for sure. Like yeah,
but
especially
yeah,
like. Hmm?
tell your truth, man. Tell your truth. It's your truth.
Yeah, I mean, you know, so yeah, it's a it's a project that's you know important to me.
And another thing we've talked about, Kevin, for our viewers out there also is kind of that connection we have to the older generations, right? Like
Yes.
while we strive to kind of formulate our identities and, you know, learn from what happened with them, there could be like this disconnect,
Yeah,
right? Like
exactly.
they we oftentimes have communicate I don't know, it's a communication or loss in translation or whatever, but you know, a lot of us
Yep.
can't connect with our parents or our relatives in a way where they can really understand what we're doing. And I know you've told me this, that you know your
Mm,
dad doesn't fully understand perhaps the impact of this project and the impact of his experience to you.
correct. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and you know, well, don't again, don't say sorry. I mean, this is the reality of it, right? And you know, I think part of your journey as a dutiful son, you know, like a grateful son, is kind of doing this. I don't know. Would you call it like a like an homage to dad, or in honor of dad, or I don't know. How would
Mm,
you describe this project? Because obviously, it's such an important part of you, what your passions lie.
oh, oof. Yeah, you know, sorry. You know, yeah, you know, yeah, my you know, sorry. I'm really
It's okay.
sorry, dude. Like, my bad. Wow. I was trying to practice too. Like, I was trying to like, you know, not get like this. But yeah, you know, like, I want to make my dad proud, you know, And it's not just me, it's like, everybody has the same type of inspiration in their life, and I'm just like, I'm grateful that, um, I guess, I'm grateful that my parents worked so hard to take care of us, because like, I think that's probably what I want to say is that maybe that's a little bit why there is kind of that disconnect between previous generations and our generation, is because like, like like my parents, they worked so hard, and like they were just like, we have to survive, and we have to like set up our kids for like a better future, and like, now that they have done that, it's like, the kids like, we just want to, I mean, yeah, we just want to do well, and show them like, hey, like, we appreciate the sacrifices that you made, and we hope that we can make you proud, So, sorry.
It's okay. It's like it's a sharing. So this is definitely, something that is so near and dear to your heart. And I guess if you could talk to your dad about, how important this project is, what would you really want him to know? Like, what do you think, would you want him to understand about why this is important to you? Because obviously you have other, you have your full-time job, you have a job that pays the bills. This is your side project. This is like your passion project. And maybe he doesn't fully understand, why perhaps you're doing this when you should be doing this, right? I don't know. So what would you want him to understand about why this is important to you?
You're gonna make me cry even more, man.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
Maybe you could show him the video, and then maybe he'll understand,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I know for a lot of us, it's hard to talk to our parents straight on.
Yes.
But if they see it and hear it in maybe a third party, maybe it's easier for them to understand. I don't know. That's how I probably perceive. Because sometimes I write things and my mom will read it, and then she'll be like, "Oh, I didn't know," So yeah. So go ahead. So what do you think is the most important thing you think he should know about your project?
The one thing that I want to say is that, both my mom and my dad are very, I'm very proud of them. And what I want to say is that, like, thank you for being a good role model to me. Can I blow my nose? Is that okay if I blow my nose
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Please do. But this is like part of the, conversation. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to say, thank you to my mom and dad for being good role models. And I hope that, in some way, by being a good father to my children, I can I can show them how meaningful they are to me. Like, they're in the Philippines right now, and I talk to them, and I see them, and on webcam, but it's, I don't, yeah, I don't get the chance to like really, it's been a while since I've seen them in person, so, but anyway, yeah, wow. So yeah, I just want to tell them that, like, I'm trying so hard, and I'm doing my best so that I can make you proud, so that I can make you guys proud. That's all, Sorry. Jeez.
I think they're proud of you. I think they're proud. Maybe they don't say it because that's their way.
Exactly.
Generations are different. So maybe it's just, sorry, there's an announcement in Hawaiian if you hear that. But yeah, cool. I think they would be proud.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, of course, it's not easy for any of us, right? We're all in the same boat. We're all, doing our best to work hard and everything. So yeah, it's just, yeah, I'm grateful, I'm lucky that I have parents like I do. And I also hope that in some way with the projects, if ever I achieve success with it, I hope that I would also allow other people that aren't as lucky as me the opportunity to like achieve their full potential, like that guy Mikhail that I told you about, like who's able to go to school and everything. Like that's amazing, like it's like, you know, having the opportunity to like reach your full potential, like, and imagine how many geniuses or how many like people, yeah, imagine how many geniuses in the Philippines that never had the chance to realize their potential because they were like, they couldn't go to school or something like that. So like, like I'm thinking of like Dado Banatao, right? Like I never even heard of this guy until I applied for FYLPRO. And then it turns out that like this guy, he comes from humble beginnings, but his technology is like literally like in every single microchip in the world. So it's like wow, so things like that, like it's, one thing that I also want to say about FYLPRO is that, it's it's allowing us to share our story, the Filipino story, because like, we, the Philippines, we've been through a lot, and like we're still going through a lot, and it's, it's granted, like it's, there's other things going on in the world as well, but like it's, I guess also one thing I want to say is that to anyone watching this is that like, um, chase your dreams, like chase your dreams. It's okay if it doesn't work out, just chase your dreams and try. And, if it doesn't work out, then at least you learned, at least what happened. So yeah.
And is this app that you're talking about, is this one of your dreams and that's why you're chasing it also?
Yeah, exactly. To tell, and also, one thing I want to share is that, I'm lucky to be able to work with one of my business partner. Shout out to PJ Escuna. We were high school buddies, and he works, yeah, so essentially like he's like the business guy of the, he's running all the money stuff. I'm just like the product guy, like the tech guy, like coming up with the specifications. But I'm happy that he's on the team as well. Like, yeah, so yeah, exactly, chasing the dream, and like, you know uh
I think the big challenge, we talked about this too, Kevin, especially in tech, because you're a tech entrepreneur, you're an engineer, breaking into that industry is really challenging, right? Especially in the Bay Area, it's so competitive. We talked about venture capitalists and just how hard it is to get funding. Like, for example, for your
exactly.
project, right? It's like,
Yeah.
how have you been able to navigate that part of it? It's like,
Ooh,
I guess you have
yeah.
mentors, right? You have
Yeah.
people who are introducing you to people. I mean, it's all about networking, right?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Like, yeah, some of the mentors that I have, Earl Martin Valencia, Holla. He's the one of the alumni. He's been a great resource. Also, previously mentioned JR. He's been a very helpful. His dynamical workspace. Thank you for allowing me to use that as a workspace as we build out the project. And kind of like talking about the whole fundraising thing. Like, God, like I remember, I applied for like over like 100 incubators, and like I've gotten rejections like left and right. And I mean like, ooh, maybe that's another reason why I'm so emotional, because I think about like all of the failures that I had to deal with. So but you know,
What keeps you
you just
going
gotta.
then?
What keeps me going is like um one thing that keeps me going is like seeing all of these new users coming in. Like I said, phase zero is like I like I believe that the app, can take off, So, that's what keeps me going. And also my daughter and my son, Aaliyah, Christoph, I love you. Just want to give a shout out to them. They inspire me as well. And then also, as previously mentioned, my parents. And then also, like, it's just that, I really believe in the project, the vision that I have for it is very clear. It's very strong. There's a phase zero, there's a phase one, and there's a phase two, which, I mentioned it to you actually, but I don't want to talk about it like too much, because like, it's kind of like, we'll get there when we get there. But yeah, yeah, like, yeah, I'm just like really grateful for all of the opportunities that FYLPRO has allowed me to have. Like I've met so many cool people. I have this opportunity to share my project with the world. Um, you know, I got to see the power that technology can have on people's lives. You know, like, you know, this kid can go to school now because he has water. Like he doesn't have to spend time, you know, going to the well, pumping and picking it up. And I mean, can you imagine like, there's like, yeah, it's like that's just like a game changer, you know? So yeah.
And I appreciate that, people like yourselves, innovative people like yourselves, they are really trying to apply technology to ensure access, right? For people that don't have access or, don't have the same privilege that others do. That's so important, right?
Exactly.
So we should do what we can to support entrepreneurs like yourself. I mean, how can
Thank you.
people, I mean, this is your chance to like call out to the
Okay.
universe. How can we help? How
All
can
right.
we get this going? Because like you said, the application has so many, possibilities, not just here, but in the Philippines when it comes to technology, right? Like, so
Right.
what concrete things do you think people can do to support, to help? Say it out
Okay.
into the universe.
Okay. So if you're a venture capitalist and you're invest in your or like or not venture capitalist, if you're like an angel investor and you're interested in investing with me and my team, please reach out to me. Check out the website, casualcarpoolers.com. You can also email me, Kevin at casualcarpoolers.com. You can also check out the app on the App Store. So what we're doing right now is I'm actually in talks with a bunch of developers just to kind of figure out somebody to help me implement the phase 1 feature set. It's a pretty, again, like we talked about this yesterday, Annalisa, and it's like, the the next step in the project is very targeted. The vision is clear, it's very strong. And once we can execute upon that and prove that particular experiment, then that's when we go to phase 2. So yeah, so if you're a develop like a Flutter developer, if you're interested in connecting with me, that would be also be good. I actually have a so this kind of, I'm gonna get into like some techie stuff, but like so there's actually a proof of concept for the Flutter client that exists in GitHub. We have a repository. It's something that I started, because I write code a little bit on the side. I mean, of course, there's like yeah, I write code. But there's also like people that are like much smarter than me that I want to team up with, right? So yeah, just being transparent on that. But yeah, just to say like, yeah, I guess the reason why I mentioned that is because, if there's any developers that are interested after seeing this video and working with me, I just want them to know that like, hey, you're not the only engineer writing code on the team. You'll have, me and, other assets to help get the project going. So yeah, so that's what I need. Need a little bit of funding. I need some angels that want to come down from heaven and bless me with their presence. That would be awesome. And
But
also,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
sorry, you were saying
And
also.
also the developers too. I have a few folks that I'm talking with, but I'm always happy to like connect with people that that are interested in the project. Because it's like it's significant. Like, I mean, can I share my? Sorry, I know we're kind of going over time, but I just want to share one last thing real quick
Yeah, of course.
with the um with
With
the
the
folks that are
project?
watching. Yeah, about the project.
Yes.
Um, so I want to show. So this right here, real quick. So this is all the user base. So just to prove everybody, we have 646 users, and we have new users that are still coming in like recently. Like some of these people are like recent, right? And the thing that really gets me is that like I spent like zero, like literally like $0 on advertising. And I told you the story about how I hustled. Like I went to the carpal spots and I was like, hey, check out my app. That's how I got the initial good traction in the beginning. But now like with all these like random people coming in, like that to me truly, that I guess I want to say like that's kind of like what really inspired me to like, that's like the major thing that was just like, hey, people want this, like people need this, let me serve them, like let me bring something beautiful and useful to the world, aside from my kids.
Yeah. True. And you
Yeah,
did mention it to me also, you really wanted to contribute something that had social impact, not just,
exactly.
like an app that was about making yourself with a filter or like, something
Exactly.
silly, but
Hmm.
something that really could change the world. And
Yeah,
I think, for people that see or listen to your story, they will understand that and see that. You just have to
hopefully.
amplify it. That's all.
Yeah, I mean,
Amplify.
I apologize for, getting kind of emotional. I hope that the signal of the message that I'm trying to convey got across, and it wasn't muddled up by me blowing my nose and all.
Well, you could consider this your first attempt, and then you'll get better as you
Yeah,
go. Where you when you do more interviews or you do more conversations with people about your story and your journey, but don't get rid of the emotion. It's part of who you are, and it's part of what other people can connect to and relate to, because you're not the only one, right? I
yeah,
mean,
exactly.
not everyone can share as openly. So I do appreciate you sharing openly.
Thank you.
It's hard for people to open up, but it takes just one person to share, and then other people will weigh in. And yeah, we should normalize the conversation of how hard it has been to connect with our parents and our previous generations, because they are from a different era.
Yeah,
They don't show
yeah,
emotion, they don't
exactly.
show
They don't say, "Hey, good
weakness.
job." Yeah, they don't exactly.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
because they were so concentrated on like, hey, we gotta like
survival.
survive. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
that's why you gotta be hard, right? Like you gotta be
yeah,
tough.
yeah, because
And
you will get eaten up by the world,
exactly,
right?
exactly.
So I appreciate now that people like us, our generation, we're talking about that openly, and we're, saying, hey, it's okay to show and want to have appreciation and gratefulness outwardly.
Yeah, yeah,
It's not just assume, because like you said, I'm sure they're proud of you. I'm sure they love what you're doing, but they don't articulate it. So it doesn't
yeah,
feel real.
yeah,
So yeah, but
yeah.
no, I think the message is good. I think, like I said, it's when you start sharing it a little bit more, then it'll be a little bit easier, maybe.
True. Yeah, true. Hopefully, I mean, hopefully, hopefully, like there hasn't been some investor that saw it and be like, "Hey, dude, what the hell's wrong with this?" And I don't know, whatever.
You need to go on Shark Tank or something, right?
Maybe.
You've
Yeah,
seen that show, yeah? No, you don't want to
yeah.
go to Shark Tank.
I mean, maybe.
Because they look kind of intimidating, but they respond to emotion and caring. But they also definitely want to make
Mm,
sure there's demand, and you can quantify. The I guess the big thing, right, in the tech world is, how are you measuring ROI, or how are you
yes.
actually going to get your money back from
Yeah.
your investment? Yeah, so
Yeah. And
you need to.
that's phase two. That's phase
That's
two.
phase two. Okay, we're gonna have to
Yeah.
tune in. We'll do another interview later, when we check up on you. After we do the first round of alumni, we'll go back and see how
Okay.
everyone's doing.
Yeah.
So
That sounds like a plan. That sounds like
yeah,
a
but
plan.
Kevin, thank you. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you, Annalisa. Yeah, I appreciate you, doing this because like there's a lot of lessons to be learned from like even the previous episodes. Yeah, I saw Laura's or yeah,
Uh-huh.
Laura, and I saw
Lauren,
Ray,
yeah,
Lauren. I'm sorry.
Ray,
Yeah, Lauren, Ray, and then Joe.
and
I saw all of
Joe.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, hey, like they're dropping some truth bombs, and
Yeah. And
it's
everyone
like,
also, actually Joe got emotional as well.
oh
I don't know if
yes,
you got to
yeah,
see her. She got a little emotional as
yeah,
well, talking about, same themes. So,
yes,
so like I said, this is what FYLPRO is about. And for those
yeah,
of you who are not members yet, consider joining, because this is a
yep,
network of really wonderful people. And we are talking about these types of issues. And that's why we do this every Friday.
yeah,
So Kevin, eventually, hopefully we'll get to meet at some point in
yes,
person.
definitely.
But hit me up anytime you need anything. I'll also think if I know any developers in my circles, because that's really what it's about, right? Like helping each other, lift each other up.
Cool.
So,
Yes, that's what it's about.
okay. All right, I'm gonna head out. I'm going to the East Coast, so that's why I'm at the airport with all these announcements. So. All right, Kevin, you take care.
You too.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Okay, bye everybody. Tune in next week.